Welcome to MacStories Unwind, a weekly review of everything MacStories and more. This week's episode, and all of MacStories this week, is sponsored by SideQuest. I'm John Voorhees, and with me, of course, is Federico Vitici. Hi, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Good. It's September now, finally, and...
Is it, or is it more like March 190th? Something like that.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like that. That's a good way to put it. It does feel like March started and never ended.
March 200th.
Wow, that's kind of depressing, actually.
It's very sad. So no, it is September. Let's try and keep a positive outlook on things.
Yeah, we are going to keep a positive outlook because that's the way we are. But let's dive into this week's stories on MacStories, because we continued our summer OS preview stories with an article by Alex Guillot, who wrote all about the new fitness app that's coming this fall on the iPhone. And this is the app that's, I mean, I guess I struggle with whether to call it the all new fitness app, because it's not a new app.
It's not all new.
It's not all new. It's the activity app rebranded as the fitness app, and significantly redesigned. I mean, it went from multiple tabs to just two. And you think, does Apple really need an app with only two tabs? I mean, there really aren't that many apps when you think about it that have just two tabs. But I think what's going on is what, as Alex mentioned in his story, is that we are destined to see a third tab come in the fall in the form of a fitness service, which has been rumored in Bloomberg in the past with Mark Gurman. But, aside from speculating about those kinds of things, the fitness app, I've been pretty happy with it myself. And, Alex runs through in his story all the details. But what's really nice, the thing that I like the most, is that the main tab now is a summary tab. The second tab is sharing. And if you share with any friends, you can see what their progress is and do challenges and that sort of thing. But the summary tab is broken down now into 4 sections. There's activity, which is just basically your activity rings and where you stand on those, your workouts, your trends, and awards. And so the summary page has a little bit of information about each of those sections, and then you can drill down in to see more workouts, go into individual workouts, see more details and statistics about each of them, that sort of thing. And I've been using this quite a bit over the summer. I like the trends a lot. Trends looks at where you're going in terms of move goals, exercise minutes, distances, stand minutes, cardio fitness, and walking pace. Those are the ones that I've got on mine. I don't know if there are others, but those are the ones I've got. And it shows details on all those and shows you whether it's trending up or trending down over a long period of time, and gives you kind of daily averages for each day of the week. So I can see that it's very clear that on Thursdays, I do less exercise, because usually Thursdays I'm getting behind in my schedule.
What is wrong with you, John?
So yeah, I think it's a great app. I really like it. I think it's improved quite a bit. I've been using it a lot over the summer. I've been using the widget with the iOS 14 beta, which gives me a quick overview of my activity rings, and then I'll tap into it once in a while and dig through the details. So it's good, and I do think that Apple's going to try to fill up those tabs a little bit more. Have you played around with it very much?
No, not really. I haven't played around with it much. I actually want to. My life has been so all over the place for the past month that my workout routine and schedule I'm in a bad place at the moment, and I hope the things settle down soon so that I can actually go back and actually try this and resume my regular workouts. I think I do like the idea of a general summary page. I think that's the right direction. It does kind of feel like it's kind of weird to have an app with 2 tabs at the bottom.
Yeah, it is.
It does feel like there's soon going to be a third one based on the rumors.
Right, especially when one is sharing, which...
Exactly.
I mean, I know a lot of people use sharing, but if you don't use sharing, it might as well not be a tab down there. I mean, it's a little odd to me. I assume that the percentage of people using sharing is probably kind of low. I do have a couple of people that I'm sharing that stuff with, but I don't actually ever communicate with them. I don't know why it's even, I don't even know why I do it anymore, to be honest. I should probably just end all that, other than it's not doing any harm being there.
I feel like the rumors of an Apple fitness subscription service for like virtual classes. I think it makes a lot of sense given the company's focus on growing that services revenue. And I think judging from the design of the app with just 2 taps at the bottom, it kind of feels like the perfect place to slap a third section right there in the middle and say Fitness Plus or whatever. And you can find all your classes there. And if they do, I guess they're also going to bring this application to the iPad, because I cannot imagine not having, that tablet at home with the virtual class videos going on the big screen, maybe even the Apple TV. I think it makes a lot of sense if they do this, if the rumor is true, and they are going to introduce a fitness subscription service. I think it makes a lot of sense to make it available through video courses and lessons on the iPad and Apple TV as well. So we'll see. Ryan has been doing a lot of writing this week, thankfully.
He has, because you and I have been busy with other things, yes.
Thank you, Ryan. He's been doing all the work. He did a couple of interesting short articles that I want to mention here. So the first one is about one of my long-standing annoyances with iPad, iOS before and now iPadOS. And that is how tab bars at the bottom of apps get covered consistently and regularly by the extra keyboard row that you get when you're using an iPad with an external keyboard. So there's a lot of conditions to be met here. So let me explain. If you're using an iPad, right, with an external keyboard, could be a Bluetooth keyboard, could be a Magic keyboard, the software keyboard disappears, right, because you're typing with the external one. However, the only remaining element of the software keyboard that remains on screen is the extra keyboard row. I think it used to be called the quick type bar, and it's the bar with the suggestions and the icons for, like, there's usually like the copy and paste icons.
Right.
Developers can also customize that extra keyboard row with their own controls. That one remains on screen. Now, if you're using an app like a text editor, right? Or a note-taking app. So you're typing into that app with an external keyboard, and you get the extra keyboard row at the bottom. If you're using that application in full screen, it's no big deal. However, if you bring in a secondary app in split view, and especially if you're using the 75 and 25 layout, so bigger app on the left, compact app in split view on the right, that app on the right is going to revert to its iPhone layout. So instead of having a sidebar, for example, it's going to have a top bar at the bottom of the screen to switch between sections, because there's not enough space to show menus and sidebars. However, that top bar gets covered by the extra keyboard row, which is exactly what Ryan wrote about on MacStories. He mentions how some developers have taken the issue into their own hands, and they've basically created custom settings for their own applications to manually force the removal of the extra keyboard row when an external keyboard is connected to the iPad. Ulysses and IA Writer and Drafts, I believe, have this option. If your external keyboard is connected, don't show me the extra keyboard row, so that if I bring in another app in split view, I don't have to dismiss the extra keyboard row all the time. Ryan's example is a perfect one. He showed off how he was writing in Ulysses with photos on the side, and photos in compact mode. If you're in the main photos view, you cannot switch between tabs unless you dismiss the extra keyboard row. And if you open an individual photo, you cannot tap on the share icon because it gets covered by the extra. So in both cases, it's very annoying. And I should also mention how in iPadOS 14, it's even trickier to dismiss the extra keyboard row, because now it used to be like a single chevron button, like a single arrow that you would tap and it would dismiss the keyboard row. Now it's a menu, so it requires 2 taps. You need to open the popover, and then you need to dismiss the extra keyboard row. I agree. This should be like a system setting. I agree with Ryan's take on it. It's annoying. There should be a more elegant solution. So go check out the article on MacStories. It's the kind of thing that you really need to visualize to understand what I'm referring to. And the other article that Ryan published is about Bear. So we haven't covered Bear, the note-taking app, in a while. However, one of the best features of Bear has always been the ability to do wiki-style links. So the ability in Bear to link to another note in the app by just typing double square brackets and then typing a few characters. And with title suggestions, you can pick another note that you want to reference. And when you tap on that link, you're taken into that note. Really elegant, really nice. I'm surprised that more note-taking apps don't do this. Like Notes, for example. I would love to have this kind of a wiki-style linking. Now, the latest version of Bear adds section linking on top of note linking. So when you start, basically the idea is that not only can you link to an entire note, you can link to a specific section of a note, which is just incredible for the kinds of people who like to nicely format their notes with headings and subheadings, as I do in Markdown. Right. You can now type the double square brackets and type a few characters to find the note you want to link. And while the note is selected, you can type a /, and you can continue typing from the keyboard to and use the arrow keys actually on your iPad's keyboard to choose the section of that note that you want to link, and then just press enter and everything gets auto-completed and you have a section link to a specific note. Really well done, really nicely done on the iPad with the external keyboard integration, because you can navigate to the suggestions both for individual notes, the titles, and the titles of the sections entirely from the keyboard. You can use the arrow keys and then you can press return and you accept the suggestions and you create a section link. Really nicely done. I have come across, ever since Mike and CGP Grey did an episode of Cortex, and one of the topics was the Zettelkasten note-taking method. I've been doing some research on this entire community of people using things like Notion and Rome and Obsidian for Zettelkasten style note-taking. This actually is quite funny because a few months ago, I actually purchased a book by Kurosh Dini on using the Zettelkasten method in Devonthink. And I've been meaning to read this book, but just I've been working on the iOS 14 review. This happened before the Cortex episode. In fact, it was quite funny when I saw that that Cortex had a Zettelkasten section. I texted Mike and I saw, oh my God, you talked about Zettelkasten. And he was like, you know about this? And I showed him, yeah, I actually purchased this book months ago.
It's crazy.
Anyway, I noticed on Reddit and just by doing some Googling around that there's a few people using Bear as a Zettelkasten note-taking app. Really fascinating setups that people have with Bear going. It's something that I wanna look in more closely. I think it could be interesting, especially with this more powerful backlinking that they have at the moment.
Yeah, that is very interesting, because I think one of the issues I've had with a lot of those popular services is that they're all web-based. Or they have apps that are very much web-like and not as native as I like. But Bear is through and through a very native app. And if you could put together something that was similar to that, those kind of systems in a native app, that's something that I would definitely be interested in. All right, I've got one more Ryan story. I was slacking off this week, Federico. I was just sitting around doing nothing all week. At least you would think so from looking at the website. But Ryan wrote a story about iOS 13.7, and I believe this is the first 0.7 we've ever had, I believe.
I think so.
I think that's right. We've had 0.6 a couple of times at least, but not 0.7, and that's because this has the contact tracing built in that doesn't require an app. Now, I know I've seen some people online who have questioned, like, well, it says I can't use it, and this is very common in the United States because despite the fact that an app's not needed, it won't work unless there's some governmental setup for recording the information for the contact tracing. So in the United States, very few states have adopted the Google and Apple contact tracing APIs. I think last I looked, it was like maybe 8 out of 50 states, something like that. But presumably this should work in, for instance, Italy, where the app in Italy is based on the Apple API, right? Do you know?
Yeah, Immuni, it's the name of the app, is based on the native Apple Google system.
All right. And I think I know the UK had one that was coming out. It's probably out by now. I haven't been following that as closely, but in any event, the whole point of this update was to introduce that system for contract tracing. So that's there now. And if your local region supports it, then you can use it without having to have an app installed, which is kind of nice. Federico, we should mention too that this week on App Stories, we talked about gaming in 2020. This was another one of the summer. I did a summer preview series article about this, and we talked about it last week on Unwind, so I won't go into detail here today. But we did an episode too that talked about a lot of the same things: controller support, remapping buttons, Game Center, all that stuff. And I continue to think that Apple and gaming is one of the most interesting stories in the Apple universe, because I've never quite figured out what Apple's deal is with gaming. They blow very hot and cold, and especially with the backdrop of things like the litigation with Epic, and online cloud services like Stadia and Microsoft Service. It's very interesting to see, and it will continue to be interesting to see where things evolve and where Apple ends up fitting in those ecosystems, because they've for many, many years been very happy just kind of being the casual gaming platform, but they seem to have bigger ambitions. It's just a matter of whether the company is going to be able to kind of to achieve those ambitions, I think.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the club, because we are still on break, but we are coming back next week with our first issue after the break. That will be September the 11th. And we'll have that. With this past week, though, we had the monthly log, which came out, and it had 3 stories in it. Ryan went over his hardware wishes for the fall, which was really interesting to me. Stephen Hackett also had a story, and he talked a little bit about working from home on a Mac and how Apple could do various things to make that better, especially with some of the laptops and so forth, which is an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought about that. I guess I have too many different possible setups, and I've got myself all figured out, but I think he's right. There is a lot of room for improvement there. And then finally, I did a review about the Powerbeats Pro, because I kind of got fed up with, I love my AirPods Pro, but I got fed up with them for running. And I found that the Powerbeats Pro are a lot better for that, which is not surprising given that they are designed for exercising. And so I did a short review on those as well. And we had an episode of Unplugged. So yes. It was, despite being on break, we had a lot of club stuff come out last week. And we'll be back soon. And we're also getting ready for our club anniversary. It's the 5th anniversary on September 14th, which is a Monday. And we will be announcing various perks and deals and other things that we'll be doing for the next 4 weeks, all related to the club. So stay tuned for that. All right, Federico, I just want to take a quick break to thank our sponsor for this episode and for MacStories this week, and that is SideQuest. SideQuest is a brand new extension exclusively for Slack that enables you to create help desks and personal task inboxes that teams absolutely love. SideQuest combines the reliability of a traditional ticketing system with the ease of use of a modern task manager, all bundled right inside of Slack. Tasks can be created in public channels or in private inboxes, and it keeps everyone on track so that nothing slips through the cracks. There are no new accounts to set up, no new software to install either. It's all inside of Slack, which makes it super simple. And it's fully compliant with GDPR, which means your privacy is protected. Sign up for a free 30-day trial today and use the promo code MacStories at checkout when you're ready to sign up for 50% off your first 6 months, which is a terrific deal. Our thanks to SideQuest for their support of MacStories and Unwind. All right, Federico, let's do our Unwind picks. I'll let you start since I've been talking for a while.
Yes. So my Unwind pick this week, obviously I haven't had much time to relax and watch anything other than Gossip Girl reruns on Netflix with my girlfriend, because we're done with the Lucifer season 5. However, what I am recently obsessed with is the latest album by The Killers. So this is the 6th studio album. It's called Imploding the Mirage. 6th studio album by The Killers. Now, I used to be a huge Killers fan back in the day. Like, I really loved, obviously, the Sam's Town was the second album. Hot Fuss. Well, so Hot Fuss and Sam's Town I really liked.
Yep.
Day and Age, the third one, not so much. And then Battleborn and Wonderful, Wonderful, they didn't really resonate with me. So the 4th and 5th albums, I didn't particularly like them. Imploding the Mirage, I think it's up there with Sam's Town for me in terms of like, this is one of their best albums. I think Hot Fuss, the debut album, still remains my absolute favorite. But Imploding the Mirage, I think the Killers have been able to, they were sort of stuck in a rut for the past few years, and I think they are coming back in style. This album is, I feel like it's the one of the most useful music anecdotes to 2020 that I've listened to in a while. It's a rich and fun and epic stadium rock album that makes me realize how much I miss concerts, big concerts in big arenas. This is like, imagine the Killers that have been listening to a lot of Bruce Springsteen, and imagine if they did an album in that style in 2020. So mixing the Killers and Springsteen in 2020. I think that's the best way that I can describe it. It's like this grandiose rock album that you can really feel the sort of the arena rock influences in this one. And I feel like give this album a listen and start with the lead single, I think it was called Caution. Really good song. Mm-hmm. I would recommend starting with Caution and Fire in Bone. Fire in Bone has an amazing bass line. It's really, really well done. If you have good headphones, put on Fire in Bone and listen to the bass line. Really well done. And my absolute favorite song on this album is When the Dreams Run Dry.
Yeah, that's a great song.
Beautiful crescendo at the end of the song. Really well done. But also, I mean, there's the other ones, My Own Soul's Warning and Dying Breed. Dying Breed is the most Springsteen of all the songs in this album, I feel. So this is a really, really well done comeback from the Killers. If you used to like the Killers like I did years ago, and then you kind of, fell off the bandwagon with Battleborn really wasn't good. And Wonderful was, maybe so-and-so, that came out 3 years ago. This one, I think it's up there. I want to say Sam's Town levels. For sure, it's up there with Day and Age. I think it's actually better than Day and Age. Or maybe it's because, like, I felt like this was the music I needed for the second half of 2020. It's, it's energetic. It's invigorating. I recommend listening to this one, especially like if you need something to balance off all the depression and sadness and feeling of uncertainty in 2020. This is a good album to listen to.
You're telling me I should stop listening to Phoebe Bridgers and listen to this,
yes,
right?
That's what I'm telling you. You really should stop doing that, man, to yourself. Like, I don't understand why people... It's 2020. Respect to Phoebe Bridgers and all the other sort of sad folks, folk rock musicians. But I really feel like we need something a little more upbeat and positive, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. We do
Says
need
the guy who listens to Death Cab for Cutie every single week.
Well, yeah, they're right. There's that. Yes. No, you're right. We do need a little dose of that every now and then too. And I've listened to this, and it's a great album. I haven't spent enough time with it though, so I am going to spend some more time with this one too. My pick for this week is a game, and it's Burnout Paradise Remastered on the Switch, and particularly on the Switch. And you might wonder, why the Switch? Well, here's the thing. I mean, this game came out a while back, and I've played it on the PS4 before, and it's great. I mean, it looks terrific on the PS4, and on the Switch, the graphics aren't as good, but this game is so much fun to play handheld. It's a car game, and I'm not a person who likes to play racing games per se, but this is the Burnout series has always been more than that. It's been more about crashing your cars. I mean, it kind of rewards you for being reckless and not being a very good driver, which I kind of love. I mean, there's all sorts of challenges. You pull up to a stoplight, and you pull the triggers, and it gives you all kinds of different challenges. Some of them are, race to this point on the map. Other ones are race to this point on the map without getting taken out by the other cars in the game. And there are other ones where it's just create as much mayhem as possible and take down as many of the other cars as possible during a race, during a certain amount of time. And then there's, of course, the whole just crash mode where you can just drive into an intersection full of cars, hit a couple of buttons, flip your car around, and the goal is to see how much damage you can do before the power meter kind of runs out on the game. I have always loved this series, and something about playing it handheld makes it feel more immediate and more real. And it was recently on sale on the eShop, so I downloaded it, and we've been playing it on and off for the last couple of weeks. It's one of those games, though, too, that's super intense. And so I found myself a couple of weeks ago on like a Friday night staying up far too late doing that and then being exhausted all weekend. So I actually have cut back on how much I've played it, just because, especially as a last thing you do before you go to bed, racing around a city and crashing cars is probably not a recipe for being able to fall asleep right away. And as I've found. So I've cut back on a little bit or played more during the day. But I really love this game. It works both on the big screen and handheld mode with the Switch just totally fine. But I've found that I kind of love playing it the most in handheld mode. All right, Federico, that's it for this week. I want to thank our sponsor again, and that was SideQuest for Slack. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. Federico is on Twitter and Instagram. He is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.